Hello! Today I'm going to be talking about a very important part of character design that I think is overlooked from time to time, and that is your character's environments. So what I'm talking about here is environments that your character will decorate or environments that reflect your character's personality. And I think they can be so fun to create. They can really enrich your story. They can make your character shine and be more memorable. And I think since comic backgrounds are something that I think a lot of, new comic creators tend to avoid or overlook because they are difficult and time consuming to create. But I think they can be so fun when you bring character design into them. So let's get into it. By the way, in the background, I'm working on our current webtoon called The Books of Avo, which you can read on Webtoon and Tapas. There should be a link down below if you are interested, but there you go. That's what I'm working on. Now, when I first started making comics, I avoided backgrounds like the plague. I did not like working on them. I found it difficult, and I think that's why I didn't enjoy it. It was a skill issue where I wasn't very good at drawing backgrounds or drawing things in perspective, so I just avoided it. I much preferred drawing characters, so that's where I put all my energy. But since then, I've learned to enjoy drawing backgrounds. It can be very fun. It can be just as fun as designing a character. And obviously it brings more depths to your story when there are rich backgrounds going on. But yeah, it's one of those things that I had to learn to love. It's an acquired taste for me. And what I often see in comics, and this isn't like a jab at anyone who uses these, but I see a lot of people using pre-made assets or stock assets for their backgrounds. And like I said, this isn't a jab. I understand why people use them because it makes the process speedier, and making comics is already so time consuming. Or it could be you personally have no interest in drawing backgrounds and you're like, I'm just going to use the stock asset. Again, no shade. But I think if you are taking that route, you can still inject character personality into those designs. I think you can take that asset and build off it with adding in your own elements. So that's what I'd recommend if you're going that route. But you can also design them from scratch and have a lot of fun doing it. So when you're designing a character's space, what am I talking about here? I think the most obvious place to start would be your character's home. The place the space I usually jump to when I'm thinking about designing a character's environment. I always think of their bedroom. That's a very personal space for your character that they have typically, and you can tell a lot of story through this, but typically it's a space that they have the ability to decorate with whatever they want. It reflects a lot about them, what they have in their bedroom. And it's the same with their home, whether that's their apartment, if they have a house, if it's like a cave or like a tree in the woods, if it's just a room, if it's like a school or work locker. I guess that wouldn't be their home, but that would be a space that they can design themselves. Or who knows, maybe there's someone who just lives at their office at work. That's also an interesting character thing. But other places to consider that can really reflect your character, would be that desk at work or home. How do they decorate it? What about like a hangout space that they share with friends or coworkers? So that could be like, maybe they all go to a cafe in your story, and that's where all the characters meet frequently, or a bar, or maybe a space behind their school, or maybe they have a clubhouse. It could be the break room at work where they often meet that has some personalization to it. I think there's lots of spaces in your story that you can really inject character into, and it can tell you a lot about your characters. It can also tell you a lot about your setting or your tone for your story. I think there's so much flexibility and fun you can have with it. So when you're thinking about these spaces that your character could kind of paint themselves onto, if that makes sense, there's some things to consider when you're drawing these, so they're not just like a blank room. Like any character design, start with their personality and their values. So personality wise, Are they someone who is very minimal? They like things maybe very clean, very polished. Or are they someone who's very like eclectic? They like having maybe a big collection of things. Maybe they like having a random assortment of things. Maybe they're quirky, you know? How much do they care about cleanliness? Are they someone who is very clean and tidy? Are they someone who's very messy and doesn't care how their space looks? And that could come from other things, like maybe their apartment is a mess because they're a character who is always working and they don't have time at home to be cleaning, and it just piles up. There's a lot of story you can tell through that. Versus someone who's always working and never comes to their apartment, so their apartment is spotless because they're never there. Again, totally depends on your character and your story. Other personality value stuff you can look into is, are they someone who likes to show off? Are they someone who wants to flaunt what they have or show that they're wealthy? Do they have a collection of something that they're very proud of, where maybe like expensiveness doesn't come into it, but they're a show off? Versus someone who maybe is very shy about their space, that they want to downplay it, they don't want to stand out. For example, if maybe your story set in like a dormitory where maybe there's like multiple people staying in the same room, maybe someone downplays it very much so that it doesn't stand out compared to their roommates. Versus someone who keeps it very authentic, where maybe they don't care how it looks. They don't care about having expensive items or showing off a collection. It's very authentic and very them. Maybe that could be weird, maybe it could be minimal, totally depends on your character. Other things to look into are your character's interests. So obviously if it's a personal space, their hobbies are going to be there, probably. So, what are their hobbies? Do they like studying? Do they like music, movies? If you've got like a sci-fi or fantasy story, do they love weapons? Is their wall covered in all of the swords and axes they've collected? Maybe they love gardening and they have all these like little houseplants all over their space. Do they like working out? Do they have a little corner of their room where they've set up some workout equipment? Next, you could consider your character's preference for like aesthetics. Are they a weeb? Do they cover their room with like anime stuff? Are they someone who maybe likes something very modern and sleek? You could have someone who, I guess similar to like the hobbies and their values and stuff, something more eclectic. Are they old-fashioned? Another thing that I think would feed into like aesthetics, but also be kind of the tone for your story. So for example, if your setting is like Victorian England, the styles you can choose from are a bit different than if it is set in like modern day America, where we have access to a lot more styles, and I think there's more flexibility for like personal expression. But you could also have like a sci-fi setting where maybe you want things to feel a bit more futuristic and technological and advanced, versus maybe something you want to feel a bit more, grim and dirty and old if it's like a gritty medieval setting or something like that. So it could depend on your character's preference for aesthetics, but I think the aesthetic of your story can also come into to kind of influence the aesthetic of your character settings. And also consider your character's like work or occupation. So for example, a high school student is going to decorate their space differently than a college student versus someone who's an adult. And even then, where is your character living? Are they living on their own? That can be different depending on their age. Again, a teenager who's living on their own probably has a very different space compared to an adult who's on their own, versus an adult character who is maybe moved back in with their parents and is in their childhood room, where they have a very different style than what they had in childhood. So there's lots of interesting things you can do with that. And of course, their occupation can also, as an adult or doing work, or even as a teenager doing work, that can influence what their space is like. So for example, maybe you have a character who's a writer, where they have a little study and a writing desk. Or maybe your character is a chef and they care about a very modern kitchen. There's lots to consider there. And there's lots of fun ways you can bring that into the story. Another thing to consider is your character's means. Do they have a lot of money or do they not have a lot of money? Do they have expensive items versus cheap items? Do they have found and used items versus new items or furniture? And along the same lines, what's their relationship with the space? So it kind of falls along the same lines of is it a teenager living at home or is it an adult who has their own place? Are they in this space voluntarily or is it forced? So coming back to that example of an adult who is moving back in with their parents for whatever reason, and maybe being forced to be in this childhood bedroom and not have the means to update it, versus someone who moved in voluntarily. Maybe they moved back to do work with their parents or take care of a parent where they might have the means to update this bedroom compared to maybe a situation where they don't have the means to update the bedroom kind of thing. Another relationship to think about with the space is how much ownership they have over it. So for example, if it's a barracks or a dormitory where they're provided with kind of the basic skeleton of maybe a bedroom, but there's a limit to how much customization they can do. So for example, military, I think there's very strict rules about how much decoration you could probably put up, where something like a college dorm, there's a lot more free reign to kind of decorate the space as you'd like. So that's another thing to consider. And even within situations like that, say you had a character who's in a space where they're not allowed to customize it at all, or very little. Maybe they're allowed one poster on the wall. Do you have a character who would break the rules and put up multiple things and keep putting it up even when the person in charge takes it down? Do you have a character who complies to all the rules to a T? Do you have someone who maybe breaks the rules but isn't blatant about it? They're hiding things under the floorboards to pull out whenever the people in charge aren't there. There's lots of fun things you can do it that way. So hopefully this has sparked some ideas for when you're designing your own characters' environments. There's no right way to do it. Obviously you can put in as little detail or as much detail as you want, same with a character design, but it's something that's so fun to look into. Before I go, I wanted to cover one of my favorite examples that illustrates really great character environment that says a lot about the characters, just to give you some even more ideas of kind of where to go from here. So one of my favorite examples comes from Promare, a lovely, lovely anime movie. Highly recommend. Very fun. Very good. There's I think it's 10 seconds. Not even. It's a very short scene telling you everything you need to know about these characters right away, just at a glance. It starts with the members of a fire rescue team waiting in their fire station, waiting for an emergency to hit, and then an emergency hits, and they're called to get up and put their equipment on and get out to the fire to save people. The scene starts with the siren going off, and then we see our characters chilling in the fire station, and there's 3 different shots, I guess, that display all of the characters. So the first one is, I'm assuming a break room in the fire station, and we see Aina, who's the girl with the pink hair, resting in a cot. We can see a pink book beside her. She's listening to music. We can see Remy, the blue-haired fellow, drinking coffee, thinking to himself, sitting on the couch. And we see Lucia, who is the resident mad scientist, who is on this giant computer that takes up such a large piece of the room, designing new armor for the rescue team. And even on this giant computer, you can see all these cute stickers stuck to the back of the chair. Then we switch to a new screen and we see Varys, I don't remember, Varys playing basketball with Vinny, the little team mascot. And then the third shot is of Ignis, the team leader, working on fixing a motor or something like that, with a beer, with a wedge of lime in it, next to his oil and all his tools. And if you look at these 3 little shots, there's so much going on in these spaces. Everything is covered. The place feels so lived in. So on all the walls, there's plaques everywhere. There's pizza boxes and trash and snacks on the coffee table. On the cot, for one, there's a cot, so that's like they're spending a lot of time in here. You can tell it's not just like stopping in the day. They're waiting and probably sleeping there while they wait for, as they go through their shift. But the cot has a blanket with their insignia, so maybe it's like regulation issued from the department. But there's also like cute, colorful pillows that are there to show that the characters have really moved in. There's maps on the wall, obviously, probably to understand the city. There's stickers on all their lockers. There's a board behind the couch covered in posters. And you can see there's news articles. There's notes from the team. There's one that says, like, keep this area clean. So maybe there's been arguments before. There's a calendar with notes and stickers. In the corner of the room, there's a TV playing with what looks like anime to me, but it could just be a TV show in universe considering it's an anime movie. There's cleaning supplies piled on the shelves. There's a basketball hoop so that they can pass the time while they're waiting. For Ignis, where he's working on the motor and stuff, there's stickers all over the toolbox. It makes it feel very used. And there's a cloth over the table to keep it safe from the motor and the oils. So yeah, very lived in, very thorough for just three, 4 different shots of our characters. You can see so much going on. It feels very lived in. We get a glimpse of like the everyday lives of these characters, even more than just like where they're sitting, what they're doing, but just the environment around them says so much. And then we get to know them even a little bit more in the very next shot, where they all run to their locker to grab their equipment. Now this was like so hard to get screenshots of because it goes by so quick. But each character has a locker, and each locker has decoration on the outside of it and then a little bit on the inside of it. And we get to see each character grab stuff from their locker, and it really just shows the character's personality in not even a second. So first you have Varus. So on his locker, there's anime stickers, there's like a paw print sticker, he's got his helmet hung up, there's a basketball poster so clearly from just seeing this, we can tell that like he's into sports, he has some like boyish interests. We saw from him earlier like playing basketball to pass the time. He's a very muscular guy, he probably cares about fitness and sports, but he's still kind of fun, And then inside the locker, there's a basketball jersey, there's a basketball sticker, and maybe deodorant or some kind of supplies up there. His personality is very clear. He's a sporty boy. Then the locker beside his, we have Ina's. So on her locker, instead of a helmet, there's a baseball cap hung up, which maybe shows she's a bit more playful or maybe more fashion forward. There's a rainbow sticker. There's like a knockoff Barbie sticker. It's very cutesy. And then on the inside of her locker, there's a mirror with a pink frame that she stops and does her makeup in, just a little quick checkup. But around the mirror, there's pictures of her sister, which is an important character in the story, and her relationship with her sister is important in the story, so it's a nice little touch. We can see tickets, maybe like an important memory or something she just wanted to keep hold of. And then there's posters and stickers, and I think we can see a makeup bag up on the top. So again, that tells you a lot about Ina, where she cares about her appearance, she cares about having memories, decorating her locker, pictures of her sister, who's very important to her, and it's all very cutesy, like she is. Then we have Lucia's locker. So on her locker, there are very cute, adorable stickers with like lollipops. There's like an Atari knockoff to show she likes video games. Very decorated and eclectic. And then in her locker, which is really fun, I laughed when I looked into it more, because when I'm watching the movie, I only see a glimpse, but when I stopped to get the screenshots, I was like, oh my god, I never noticed this. But inside her locker is a vending machine that she likely designed. She's a bit of a mad scientist character. And it extends out a lollipop for her to grab, but you can see that there's like drinks and snacks. It might be books, but I'm assuming it's all like boxes of snacks in there. And you can see a little solo cup up on the top shelf. So she's just grabbing snacks and drinks in there. Then we have Remy, the blue-haired fella. So on his locker is very organized. There's like papers stuck to it, post-it notes. He's got his helmet hung up. Very sensible. And then on the inside, it made me laugh quite a bit. There is post-it notes and posters of topless women, which I did not expect, but there you go. He's all business on the outside, party on the inside, I guess. And then we also see some cups and some his jacket and everything that he pulls out. And we get the little scene transition. So there you go. There's also a glimpse of Gallows' locker. I'm assuming that you can see on the far left before the scene transitions. And I think it's Gallows because you can see what looks like maybe a samurai helmet and some Japanese themed stickers because his whole thing is he's obsessed with a far-off island nation through the movie, which is a cute little joke in it. So I'm assuming that's his locker, but we don't get to see inside it, so... But anyways, I think that's a very telling thing of his character where I can look at it and say, like, that's probably Gallows. There we go. That is a scene that I love. It's so quick, but there's so much detail. It says so much about our characters. And not every character that is introduced in these scenes has a lot of screen time. They're part of the team. They help out through the story. But the only characters we really get a deep look at are probably Aina and Gallo, who we didn't see the inside of his locker in this scene. But we already know so much about these characters just by looking in their lockers and how they all decorate their shared workspace together. So yeah, hopefully this has inspired you to design your own character living spaces, workspaces, whatever you need for your story. Yeah, like I've been saying through this video, it is so fun to think about this stuff. It's a great extension of drawing your character is to figure out how they live. Like, what are their spaces like? It can be so cute. It can tell you a lot in the story. You can foreshadow things in the story. You can put in a lot of wonderful little details about your characters that I'm sure readers will love, especially if there's lots of detail and they can go back and look it over and be like, oh my gosh, look at this little detail that makes so much sense for, you know, this character. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun, and I highly recommend designing your backgrounds with lots of thought and love that you would give your characters. So there you go. Hopefully this inspired you, and it was fun, and it makes me want to do better with my character backgrounds, because I don't always do the best with them. You gotta remember, it's really fun, and you gotta do it, Ursula. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like. That would help us out quite a bit. And let me know if you're gonna do more character environment stuff, or if you already do it. I would love to know. If you have any advice or any ideas, let us know in the comments. Alright, take care everyone. Goodbye!